All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the Goat Film Review Show. I'm your host Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com and Kyle and Nick on Film on YouTube. And today we got some good topics for us. Today we're going to talk a bit Academy Awards stuff, new Spike Lee film coming out, and then just cover some movies that I watched recently, some stuff that I want to talk about and hear from you guys. So let's just start it real quick with a quick update. I've been trying to figure out what to do with clip outs from this show. And so I kind of hit Twitter and asked you guys, like, would you rather have me to put them under news bites, which are the quick little 5-minute videos where I make on stuff throughout the week, or should I put them separate? And I got the answer, put them separate. So there's already one inside the news bites, but when I do clip outs, I will create a separate spot for the Goat Film Review Show clip outs that you guys can find there. In case you don't want to check out the full show, you can check it out that way. Does that work? Sounds good? Let's go. All right, so main story today. It's something that happened a couple weeks ago, but I feel like it's a big enough story that we should talk about it. And that is the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences has changed its voting rules for the film release year 2020 for the Oscars that will be in 2021. A couple major things that took place and some minor adjustments that have also taken place here too. So we'll cover the big one, I think, which is that the Academy has temporarily suspended its rule that a film must complete a qualifying run in theaters for at least 7 consecutive days with at least 3 showings daily. That was kind of the original ruling. Your film had to play 7 consecutive days with at least 3 shows every day. So that's why you'd have to have The Irishman dedicated for like 12 hours. So that rule has temporarily been suspended. I know a lot of people are kind of coming out and saying like it's a permanent thing. It is temporary, and I believe it will be for this year. Or until this crisis is averted. So, we'll kind of have to see how the year goes with health and with the way that our world is kind of set up and run, and see where it goes from there. But that is a major change, actually, and one that I wasn't entirely sure they were going to make. Now, they did have a couple caveats there. The film must be made available on the Secure Academy Screening Room members-only streaming site within 60 days of the film's streaming or VOD release. Now, this also, I gotta say, this also only affects films that had planned releases, including theatrical windows. I'm not entirely sure how they would enforce that, because there's oftentimes throughout the year, smaller films will get a release window announced only to have, like within months, not exactly years out. We talk about these big tentpole films. We talk about like, Marvel dropping like 4 release dates in 2027, for upcoming Marvel releases. Those films get placed long in advance. No, not 2027, but they do get placed long in advance. Whereas you have smaller films, the ones that usually do get the more prestige, Academy Award discussion, get placed in there as well. So I think, I'm not sure how you would police that, but it's an interesting idea, and it makes sense too. But at the same time, most films that didn't get a theatrical window are probably not looking for Oscars anyway. So, but maybe it's just to limit the amount that Academy members have to search for films. I think it just kind of, again, like creates a smaller grouping. As much as it irks me, it's a necessary thing. But, this was a question I had ever since Universal, which we talked about last week, ever since Universal made Trolls World Tour a digital release. The reason for that being that I'm not big on, I'm not really big on the first Trolls movie, but I think that, I do think that we have Trolls World Tour being a release that could be up for Oscars. There's a lot of music in it. Most of it's not original, but there could be an original song. There's Academy or animated. There's animated levels that it could hit for best animated feature, because some years we get a lot of animated films that are great. Some years we don't. Reviews have been pretty good for Trolls World Tour, so I thought like moving it off of this, like that prestige could really help World Tour out. And then Warner Brothers, I believe, had planned on releasing Scoob in theaters. They adjusted that as well to an online VOD release. And I think those kinds of films, animated films, family films, are the ones that are going to do better during this particular time. As I said last week, I think you're more willing to drop the $20 rental fee if it'll get your kids to quiet down for 2 hours. So that's just what it is. I like these rules. I think these are good rules. I think they probably have been thinking about this ever since the first case hit the U.S. The Academy has probably been working through this idea. So this rule change of suspending the theatrical window, I think, can work, especially when you have, like, the 3 months early on in the year when films were getting good. I still loved The Invisible Man. I really enjoyed Bad Boys for Life. The Gentleman was great. There were some good movies that have come out early on in the year, but there's not enough to really have a best picture window that's going to be strong. And if we don't get a normal theatrical experience until the end of the year, or maybe in 2021, this is an important concession the Academy can make that doesn't really affect them all that much. And in fact, if I were a member of the Academy, I'd be pretty excited about that, because they'd start to get some movies that they can actually watch without having to drop some cachet. Other changes, we can talk about a couple of those as well. But they combined sound mixing and sound editing into Best Sound. And correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong about this, but I do believe... Oh, hi, Cat. I do believe that Best Sound was a category some time ago, and it got separated into mixing and editing. I may be wrong about that, but I believe that's the case. So Best Sound combined, I think... Here's the thing. People don't understand the difference between Best Sound editing and Best Sound mixing. And I think to the casual listener, it kind of sounds like sound. Like it is Best Sound. And I know in previous years there have been cases of two films, or the same film winning both awards, where people were like, it's the loudest, it's the noisiest, it's the one with the most sound, give it to that. Or you get people that vote for two separate films not knowing the difference between them just because they can celebrate two different movies that they were kind of torn on. So again, like, I like the idea of multiple films being recognized, but I also believe that this is a good sign. It will shorten the show, even if a few minutes. But it's also important to note, too, that this rule actually was brought to the Academy by the sound department. The collection of sound people that worked there came to the Academy and they said, we want to combine these into one. And I think that was a strong move on their part. Very respectful, and I like that they got to make the call for themselves, too. One other big change that happened, Best Music, Best Score, of course, has adjusted their rules that the film must contain 60% original music to qualify. In the case of franchise films, it must contain 80% original music. And I think that's kind of an odd adjustment. I like the 60% original music thing. I think that works. But the 80% for a franchise film, which I find very strange overall. Hey, there's my cat. Here's Spike. Hi, everyone. So I think the 80% for franchise film is really weird, because how can you really qualify a franchise film? Like, how can you really say that this is a franchise film, but this isn't? As it breaks down, like with a series like The Conjuring, do the individual pieces of that cinematic universe count as franchise films, or is it just all three Annabelle films, the two Conjuring films? In the case of Marvel, do they, quantify the different superheroes and each one of them as their own franchise, or is the Marvel Cinematic Universe its own franchise? The DCEU, is that kind of the case as well? Like, now, granted, most of these films would have different franchise, like, they would have different scores anyway, but still, it's kind of an odd ruling to place for it. I mean, 60% should just be 60% across the board. Why 80% for it? I don't know. Maybe this will become clearer to me down the road, but I just think it's an odd thing. One final rule change that they made, and they made some few other ones too, but these are the ones I think are worth talking about. All members are allowed to participate in the preliminary round for Best International Feature. So here's kind of how the nomination process works, and bear with me because I kind of know this stuff, but each individual department of a film is responsible for nominating the nominations of that department. So for Best Sound, your sound engineers, anyone in sound work, nominates those films, and then the collective Academy votes for the winner. That's why you might get smaller films, is that if someone, like if you get, who's going to know sound better than the sound guys to pick the 5 films that you decide from? Who's going to know better than the special effects guys as to which are the best special effects of the year? Same thing with original score. There's an acting branch which does actor and supporting actor. I think it's acting, supporting actor, actress, and supporting actress. I think all 4 is under that as well. The only ones that are kind of on their own are the best film kind of ones. Best picture. I don't know if best animated feature or documentary. I think that's the documentary branch and the animated branch that do that. And And then now Best International Feature will not be done by a select group. It will be all members that are allowed to participate in that, which I think is good. I think it's another thing that's going to broaden the number of accessible films, because I don't think you have to know international films to know what international film you like. And I think with this year's win for Parasite, that's kind of a cool adjustment that I think is really going to help. So overall, some good changes that were made for this year. The only real, temporary one is that suspension of the rule for theatrical windows. Sound editing, sound mixing combined, I think works. Best music, I like the idea of the 60%. Don't really understand the 80% for franchise films. It's almost like kind of pushing those out. And then what constitutes original music in that case? Because Rise of Skywalker, for example, John Williams was very vocal that he used every single theme from every single Star Wars film while writing the music. But since they were newly written and newly orchestrated, and does that not count at all because The Rise of Skywalker was nominated? So it's really that's an odd voice for me. And then all members being able to participate in the preliminary voting rounds for Best International Feature. That's a good rule. I like that one too. So I want to know, guys, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's a good idea to suspend that theatrical window, or should they be standing with the theaters and NATO and saying, no, we believe in the theatrical experience? It's only temporary, so, kind of what do you guys think about that? Same thing with the best sound editing and mixing. Should they be combined? Should they be kept separate? I want to hear your thoughts on that. Best music, do you guys kind of understand that 80% rule? Maybe you can provide some insight if you're more inclined to scores than I am. And do you think it's a good idea for the members to be able to participate in that preliminary round of Best International Feature? I want to know your thoughts, so comment below and let me know. All right, guys, let's get into our one little story of the day, and then this episode might run a little bit shorter than the last one as well. So, little story today is this topic is Spike Lee has a new film called Da 5 Bloods. Now we've heard that film will hit Netflix on June 12th. I think that was one that was going to have a theatrical window. Don't quote me on it, because I knew he was working on a new film, but I didn't really know how it was planned on being distributed. But it will be eligible for Oscars then, because they are going to do a Netflix release and put it on the screening room. So that's important to note, because this is his follow-up to Black Klansman, which, if you guys know me and know my thoughts on Black Klansman, it's my favorite movie of the year for the year that it came out. I thought it was just incredible how we took the weirdest story about race that I've ever heard. A black cop going undercover into the KKK, and it kind of it played to its absurdity, and it also knew where it could mine comedy, where it had to be serious, and felt so timely today. Like, the film, if you haven't seen it, the way the film ends will keep your jaw on the floor with how it ties itself together and relates itself to what we're currently going through as a country. And it's just absolutely mind-boggling. So if you guys know my thoughts on Black Klansman, which now you know, it was my favorite movie of the year that it came out. It also netted him a Best Adapted Screenplay award. So Spike Lee's kind of had a contentious relationship with the Oscars, but it's nice to know that Da 5 Bloods, which hits Netflix on June 12th, will be eligible for Oscars, because he is on their good side with things too. And it'll be curious, because I know he was very against the idea of Green Book winning Best Picture of the year that happened. If you saw the video of him getting in shock about this, maybe you won't even show up to the Oscars if they're held. But it's nice to know that it will be there, because I think Black Klansman being my favorite Spike Lee film, I can't wait to see what this new film will be. The film stars Chadwick Boseman, and I know a little bit about the plot. It's about 4 African-American Vietnam vets who go back to Vietnam in search of the remains of their fallen squad leader. And I think they're also looking for buried treasure. There's some sort of treasure aspect of it as well, which seems kind of interesting. Overall, it's a very cool idea for a film, and I think it will be very... I think he'll find a way to make it timely, and I'm really excited to see what he does with that, because Da 5 Blood sounds like a really interesting Netflix film too, and it's one that you don't have to go to the theater to see. So someone who has recently quit Netflix because lack of interesting content that really drives me, I'll probably have to go back to it for Da 5 Bloods, because that sounds really interesting to me. I love Chadwick Boseman, big fan of Spike Lee's recent work. I like his older stuff too, but never really got me a lot. I really love Do the Right Thing. but there's not a lot of other Spike Lee films that I'm just diehard for, other than Black Klansman. So I'm really kind of on the side of like wanting to see what he does next because I think he's at the top of his game right now. So let me know what you guys think, guys. Are you planning on watching Da 5 Bloods when it comes to Netflix June 12th? Or is it a film you're thinking, probably pass on it? Like, are you a fan of Spike Lee's other films? I want to hear what your favorite Spike Lee film is. Drop that down in the comments below because I'm really curious to see. He's done a lot of work that's very well loved. So I'm really curious to see, like, what do you guys think is his best film? So leave your thoughts below on that. Let's get in next to what did I watch in the last week. It's been a little quiet for the Goethe house. Actually, the wife and I are going through Game of Thrones. So because she's never seen the show before, and of course we finished up last year, and so we've been watching an episode or two of that a day. So it kind of jogs into my ability to catch new movies because the episodes are pretty long. So recently, the past week, it's as far as new stuff that I've watched, Point Break. I'd never seen Point Break before. I know, it's crazy. It's mind-boggling crazy. I've never seen Point Break before, but big Patrick Swayze 80s fan. I know the film was actually early 90s, wasn't it? But big Patrick Swayze fan for like his kind of pulpy films. I think those are his most fun. I really enjoy Keanu Reeves, and being a fan of the Fast and Furious films, knowing that film is essentially a remake. The original film was essentially a remake of Point Break. I was very excited to check this one out. And I'll tell you guys, I liked it. I did not love it. Maybe it's the kind of film that you got to see at the right point. Point Break. But for me, it was good. I thought it was good. I thought it was very entertaining. But having kind of known the story for a while, I kind of put all the pieces together maybe quicker than I should have. I felt that some of the reveals were a little easy. I felt that, it was some really great shots in the film, some really great sequences in the film. It's one of those things where you kind of know that it doesn't technically make sense, like with physics. Like the way they're having conversations while free falling from a plane. I know that that's not possible. And just overall, like kind of just a weird, silly movie at times. I also did not like the ending. I do not think that Keanu Reeves is... I did not buy Keanu Reeves' decisions near the end of the film. And the way his relationship with Bodhi, played by Patrick Swayze, played out. I just did not believe that, given what they'd gone through together and in their arcs in the film. I just didn't buy how it ended. But overall, I liked the film. I'm interested. I would have liked to have seen a sequel. I would have liked to have seen where they would have gone, because I know there was one planned, but it just never took off. Funny story about Point Break, actually, before we move on. I ordered Point Break years ago. Online, there was no picture online when I ordered it. So the Blu-ray showed up, and I opened up the box, and it was the remake. I'd spent good money on that remake, hearing it was terrible. And for some reason, I think I just forgot to send it back, because it just never went back where it needed to go. And so now I have the remake and the original film, and I'll probably watch the remake because I have it. I know when I put it online that I'd seen the original for the first time, people were like, don't watch the remake. I own it, so I'm going to have to watch it. Like, I'm not going to have it sitting on my shelf and just there and not watch it. But thank you for your thoughts and prayers with that. So I will probably check out the remake soon. The other films, I watched a couple of Three Stooges films. I was big on Movie Mania, where they take over a film production, which is really kind of funny. And then Half Shot Shooters, which is a super dark Three Stooges short, where they become military men and end up blowing up a ship that's their own, and literally ends with them dying. I mean, it's not gruesome death. They get shot. But it's kind of weird. I don't know. It was an odd one. Just kind of made me uncomfortable. So those are some of the films I watched this week. Nothing TV-wise that I've really been into recently. Nothing that I've been catching up on. But definitely, caught some films this week. My recommendation, though, for the week is a film I've seen many, many times. And what's great is, while watching Point Break, the wife asked me about an hour into it. She stopped me and said, "When does Keanu Reeves get on the bus?" And I stopped because I realized, I was like, you think this is Speed. And so we actually, we joked about it because, I get it. Anybody who's not into films the amount I am may confuse some of the wackier Keanu Reeves films. But in my head, I was like, so you haven't seen Speed? And she said, no, I haven't. I said, well, I guess we know what we're watching tomorrow night, because we've been kind of on an action movie kick. So I was like, this is perfect. We'll segue from Point Break into Speed. And I said, Speed's going to be a better film. I'm going to love Speed. It's been probably at least a decade since I've watched it, but one of my all-time favorite action movies is Speed. So I was really happy we got a chance to watch that the next night. If you guys don't know the plot of the film, I mean, it's pretty simple. A terrorist put a bomb on a bus, that once it gets above 50, it arms the bomb, and you can't go below 50 or the bus explodes. It's a really cool idea. It's a really cool concept. It could turn out really stupid. And kind of like Point Break, there's a few physics things which don't really make sense, but the film does a great job of moving past that and making it really fun and enjoyable. I absolutely adore Speed. I think it's a nearly perfect action film. It's just so much fun to watch. And not having seen it for a couple of years, I kind of forgot all the little movements throughout it. But it was one of the first films I ever videotaped off of TV to watch. And so it's always kind of funny when I watch the film now, because whenever they drop an F-bomb, I'm like, oh, wait, that's right, because I watched it on TV so many times as a kid. One of those like real childhood favorites of mine that I actually think has gotten better the more I've watched it. Funny thing about it too, I was on the subject of scores actually. It was probably the first score that I really remember like humming in my head after seeing the film. So much so that I actually I took a video cassette, or not, an audio cassette, and I recorded the opening theme of the film, because it got me pumped up. So at like 6 years old, I was like playing this theme in my room to get like pumped up and jacked up and ready. And it's a great movie. If you haven't had the chance to check out Speed, absolutely do so during this time. You can skip the sequel, Speed 2 Cruise Control, where it's all on a big cruise liner and Willem Dafoe is in it, but Keanu Reeves isn't. Like, it's terrible. Like, I haven't seen it since it came out, but I honestly have no interest in revisiting it, even out of curiosity. But definitely check out the original Speed. It is so much fun. It is absolutely balls to the wall action, mostly on a bus. So check it out. That's it for stuff we're going to talk about today, guys. If you guys are interested, though, later on today, you're going to see an episode of Kyle and Nick on Films, Why I Love Cinema, my weekly show over there, which during this time period will just kind of me talking about films that I think deserve more due than they got. And this week we will be discussing In the Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter's 1994 film, I believe. Basically his Lovecraft, Stephen King inspired insanity piece, and we'll get into a little bit of the 5 things I love about that film and some really cool trivia about it too. So go ahead and check that out. That's over on the Kyle and Nick on Film channel, which you got the link below. You can check out right over here. So where can you find me? You can find me all over the interwebs. You can find me on GoFilmReviews.com. I got over 900 film reviews you guys can check out. Do so. It's got a big back catalog, so please go check that out. You can also find Goat Film Reviews on Facebook at Go Film Reviews, or you can find me on Twitter at Almighty Goatman, Instagram at Almighty Goatman. So please check that out. And guys, if you're interested in helping support the show here, you can do a couple of things. Real simple, barely anything we ask of you. Go ahead and give us a like down below. Super click, one time, gives us a like, moves the channel. If you guys are interested in more stuff like this, go ahead and subscribe. Check out some more stuff like that. It's great to be able to chat films with other people, and I love getting the conversation going. If you have any thoughts on some of the stories we talked about, or any thoughts on any of the movies that I've watched recently, go ahead and drop that stuff down in the comments. I'm pretty good about responding to most of the stuff, as long as you're not a jackwagon. So go ahead and drop your thoughts below on the different topics we've talked about today. I'm very curious to hear about them. You can also share the video. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Instagram. I don't care. But it gets the video out there more, and it gets a little bit more movement on it. I really do appreciate that, guys, because it's fun. It's fun chatting films with you guys. So thank you for checking out the channel and the episode today. That's it for us, everybody. So we'll see you guys next week for the Goat Film Review Show. This is Kyle, signing off.